Okay, I want you to picture a specific moment. You're sitting there, maybe with a textbook open, or maybe you're in the middle of a conversation with a native
Mm.
speaker, and you know the words, you know them, but suddenly it's just nothing. It's like a blue screen of death in your brain.
The dreaded freeze. Yeah, I know that feeling.
The freeze, and it's not just that you forgot a word. It's this wave of heat, this sudden exhaustion. You feel discouraged, you feel tired, and honestly, you feel a little stupid. You've hit the wall.
That experience is so visceral. And I
Mhm.
think for a lot of people listening, that isn't just a metaphor. That is like their Tuesday afternoon.
Right. And usually when we hit that wall, our instinct is to just push harder, study more, memorize more lists, drill more verbs. But today we're doing a deep dive into a source that says, stop.
It's a very counterintuitive approach.
Yeah.
We're looking at a piece of material titled The Language of Optimism, Cultivating a Mindset for English Mastery. It centers on a specific audio guide from the Learn English Calmly series.
And before you roll your eyes and think, okay, great, another just be happy self-help tape, just hang on. Because what we're unpacking today is the argument that English isn't just a technical skill,
Right.
it's an emotional one. Our mission is to figure out if changing your mindset, specifically using what the source calls the power of positivity,
Mm.
can actually hack your brain into learning faster.
I love that framing
Oh,
because we treat language like it's code,
yeah.
input data, get output. But humans aren't computers. We have emotions, and this source argues that those emotions are the gatekeepers to fluency.
So let's start with the who. Who is the source actually talking to? Because it doesn't really seem to be targeting the fresh, bright-eyed student who just bought their first notebook.
Definitely not. This is for the weary. The source explicitly mentions learners who are discouraged, tired, or afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah.
It's targeting the person who has been trying for a while and is, starting to doubt if they're even capable of this.
I think that's such a huge demographic. We talk about the intermediate plateau all the time, but we rarely talk about the intermediate burnout.
It's the burnout of self-doubt. The source identifies negative thoughts as the primary barrier. And this is key. It doesn't say the barrier is complex grammar or fast listening speeds.
No.
It says the barrier is the narrative that's playing in your head.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for a second. Is that actually true? Or is it just a nice thing to tell people so they feel better? Because I can have the most positive mindset in the world, but if I don't know what the past perfect continuous tense is, I just don't know it.
That's the classic objection. But here's what we need to get into some of the cognitive science that I think underpins what the source is doing. Think about your brain like a computer with limited RAM.
Okay, I'm with you.
When you are in a state of anxiety, when you're afraid of making a mistake, your brain initiates a stress response.
Yeah.
We call it fight or flight, but in learning, it's mostly freeze.
The freeze, yeah.
And that stress response consumes a massive amount of your cognitive bandwidth.
So the fear is basically a background app that's draining 80% of my battery.
Precisely. If 80% of your brain is screaming, don't sound stupid, don't mess up, you only have 20% left to actually process the language. The source argues that learning English is not just about grammar, it's also about how you think. Because if you can't shut down that anxiety app, the grammar app won't even load.
That makes total sense. It explains why I can be totally fluent in the shower, but the second I have to speak to a waiter, I sound like a toddler.
Exactly. The source describes a transition. It wants to move the learner from that high alert state of fear into a peaceful, reflective moment. It's trying to create a safe container where your brain actually has the bandwidth to absorb new information.
So this isn't just woo-woo magic. It's resource management for your brain.
It is biological resource management, yeah.
All right, so that's the why. Let's get into the how. Because the source details a methodology of calm. And it starts with something really interesting, the actual sound of the voice.
Yes. The source emphasizes a gentle, encouraging talk and a calm, supportive tone. This is auditory regulation.
Auditory regulation, what's that?
Well, think about it. If you're already stressed about English and you listen to some high-energy, really fast-paced news broadcast, your cortisol spikes.
Okay, sure.
The source suggests dropping the register. By using a supportive tone, it signals to the listener's nervous system. You are safe. There is no tiger here.
It's almost like a lullaby strategy, but for learning.
In a way, yes. It lowers the defenses.
But then there's the structure of the language itself. The source mentions that the sentences used are slow, simple, and clear. Now, if I'm an intermediate learner, my instinct is to say, I need to practice hard sentences to get better. So why is the source dumbing it down?
This is a really critical distinction. They aren't dumbing it down, they are prioritizing the message over the mechanics. The source notes the use of simple cause-effect sentences.
Okay, unpack that. Why does that matter?
Because if the goal is to change your mindset, you need the message to land without any resistance. If the sentence structure is really complex, lots of relative clauses and passive voice, your brain goes into decoding mode. You're just parsing the syntax. You're not feeling the meaning.
I see. So if I have to look up 3 words in the dictionary just to understand a sentence about confidence, the moment is ruined. I'm not feeling confident. I'm feeling confused.
Spot on. The simplicity acts as a delivery vehicle. It allows the meaning, the hope, the belief to bypass the analytical brain and go straight to the emotional center.
It's like a Trojan horse, but with positivity inside instead of soldiers.
That's a great analogy. And once inside, they deploy what the source calls the language focus.
Yes, I highlighted this list. They use very specific keywords: positive, believe, hope, confident, calm.
These are high valence words. In linguistics, valence refers to the intrinsic attractiveness or aversiveness of a word. These words carry a heavy positive charge.
And the source points out they use present simple and future-focused expressions. Why the focus on tense?
Because anxiety lives in the past or in the conditional future. I made a mistake yesterday, or what if I fail tomorrow? The source shifts this to, I am calm. I will learn.
It grounds you.
It grounds you in the now and pivots you forward.
It's essentially linguistic programming. You are giving the learner a new script to overwrite their own internal monologue.
You're rewriting the code. Instead of that default loop of I'm bad at this, you're manually inputting I am becoming confident.
But here is where I get a little skeptical again. Because if I just stand in the mirror and say, I am confident over and over, my brain usually says, no, you're not, you're lying.
And that is why the flow is so important.
Hmm.
The source doesn't just throw affirmations at you. It outlines a very specific scenario and flow, a narrative arc. And if you mess up the order, it doesn't work.
Okay, let's slow down and really walk through this because I think this is the practical core of the deep dive.
Yeah.
There are 5 steps in this audio guide. Step 1 is a peaceful, reflective moment.
Right, this is the setup. Before you do any work, you just pause. You signal to the brain that the fight is over.
Easy enough. But step 2 is the one that surprised me. Step 2 is addressing the negative thoughts and self-doubt.
This is the genius part.
But why? If we're trying to be positive, why are we bringing up the negative thoughts? Shouldn't we just ignore them?
Absolutely not. This is what psychologists call the paradox of acceptance. If you try to suppress a thought, if you try not to think about a pink elephant, what happens?
I see a pink elephant immediately. Every time.
Exactly. If you ignore your doubt, it just grows in the background. The source argues that you have to explicitly acknowledge the negative thoughts. You have to look the monster in the face and say, I see you. I know you're there.
So it validates the struggle. It's saying it's okay that you feel this way.
Yes. And once you've done that, once you've stopped fighting the feeling, then, and only then, can you do step 3, the pivot.
Explaining the importance of positive thinking.
Right. You've acknowledged the doubt, and now you offer the alternative. You say, I feel fear, but I know that a positive mindset will help me. You can't make that pivot if you haven't done the groundwork of step 2.
That makes so much sense. It feels less like toxic positivity and more like a negotiation with yourself.
That's a very honest conversation.
So we've pivoted. We're ready to be positive. Step 4 is encouraging small positive habits.
And notice the word small. This is crucial. It moves from the abstract concept of optimism to concrete action. The source doesn't say go write a novel. It implies small, manageable changes.
Which lowers the barrier to entry again.
Correct. It builds momentum. And that leads us to the final step, step 5, resolution, ending with hope, confidence, and calm motivation.
It's a complete emotional journey. You start with peace, you dive into the darkness of doubt, you find the light, you make a plan, and you end with confidence.
It's a narrative structure.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's a structure we usually reserve for therapy or, deep conversations with friends. We rarely see it applied to learning English.
That's so true. Usually an English lesson structure is, here is the rule, here are the exceptions, good luck.
Here's the quiz. Don't fail.
Exactly. This is completely different. And speaking of real conversations, the source makes a point that I really want to highlight. It says that by listening to this, learners will hear real-life English used to talk about mindset, hope, belief.
And this is a huge gap in most curriculums. We teach transactional English, how to buy a ticket, how to order a salad.
The library is across the street.
Right. But how often do you need to tell someone where the library is versus how often you need to tell a friend, hey, I'm having a really hard week, but I'm trying to stay positive?
Oof. Yeah. That second one is way more common in my actual life.
But we almost never teach the vocabulary for it. The source calls this emotional English. It's a language of connecting with others and connecting with yourself.
Emotional English, I love that term. Because if you can't express your internal state, you feel so isolated. And isolation is a motivation killer.
And if you can't express it to yourself, you can't self-soothe. Think about the listener right now. Maybe they're learning English and they're listening to us. If they start feeling overwhelmed by how fast we're talking, what is their internal monologue doing?
Usually, it's probably saying, see, you can't keep up. You're not good enough.
But if they have this emotional English toolkit, they can pause and say, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed, and that's okay. I'm just going to listen for the main ideas. I am calm.
That changes everything. It turns a moment of failure into a moment of practice.
Exactly. It empowers the learner to be their own coach.
So let's look at the promises the source makes. It claims this approach leads to 3 specific things: improved confidence, improved focus, and improved daily habits.
And we can see now how they are all connected. The methodology of calm reduces the fear response. That's the confidence. Lower fear means more brain bandwidth. That's the focus.
Right.
And the concrete nature of step 4, that leads to the habits.
It's a virtuous cycle. Instead of the downward spiral of, I'm scared, so I don't study, so I get worse, so I'm more scared.
It reverses the polarity of the feedback loop.
And the mechanism for all this, the source says, listening carefully, repeating the sentences, and letting the words guide you.
Letting the words guide you. That phrasing really stuck out to me. It implies surrender.
Surrender, that sounds passive.
Well, not passive in a lazy way, passive in a trust way. You stop fighting the language. You stop overanalyzing every single grammatical structure and just let the rhythm of the positive words wash over you.
I see.
It emphasizes repetition, sure, but not drill repetition. It's more like mantra repetition.
And we know mantras work.
We do. There's plenty of research on self-talk. The source distills this into what I think is its biggest aha moment.
Yep.
It says, one positive thought today can create a better tomorrow in life and in English.
In life and in English, they really blur the line there, don't they?
And they should. Because you're one person. You don't have an English learner brain and a real life brain. You just have a brain. If you are anxious in life, you will be anxious in English. The source is arguing that you can't solve the English problem without solving the anxiety problem.
That's profound. It means that learning English isn't just about acquiring a skill. It's a training ground for your personality.
It's a crucible for character. The source mentions that a positive mindset helps you speak more freely. Why? Not because you know more words, but because you are less afraid of the words you don't know.
You're trusting the process.
You're enjoying the process, as they put it.
Enjoying the process. I feel like we lost that somewhere along the way. We got so obsessed with fluency and certificates that we forgot that learning a new way to communicate should be fun.
It should be joyful. It's expanding your world. But fear kills joy. This source is trying to kill the fear so the joy can come back.
So let's wrap this up and summarize what we've uncovered. We looked at the learn English calmly approach and this language of optimism, and we found that it's not a magic pill, but a specific psychological strategy.
Right. It targets the fight or flight response that blocks learning. It uses simple syntax and high-valence vocabulary words like hope and believe to lower that cognitive load.
And it uses a very specific 5-step narrative flow, starting with peace, acknowledging the doubt, pivoting to positivity, building habits, and finding resolution to guide the learner out of that burnout zone.
And the ultimate goal is to build emotional strength so that the technical strength of grammar and vocabulary actually has a foundation to stand on.
The takeaway is clear. You cannot separate the learner from the human. Positive thinking can change the way you live and the way you learn English.
It's a holistic approach to what seems like a technical problem.
Now, before we sign off, I want to leave our listener with a thought. We've been talking exclusively about English today, but as we were discussing this emotional English and the idea of mindset blocks,
I have a feeling I know where you're going with this.
if learning a language is actually an exercise in emotional strength, what else is? Think about the things you tell yourself you're bad at I'm bad at math. I'm a terrible cook. I can't handle public speaking.
I'm not a creative person.
Exactly. Are you actually lacking the technical skill, or do you just lack the language of optimism for that specific domain? Are you hitting a wall because the wall is real, or because you're tired and afraid of looking foolish?
That is a very uncomfortable question to ask yourself, but probably a necessary one.
Maybe we all need a motivational monologue for more than just English. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.
See you next time.